We've been used to it for a long time. The expression made in China, China accountable for the production of we used a lot of products today, but it seems their very own aircraft, the comac C919, is not as Chinese made as we all thought in this video. We're going to dive into how the pride of the Chinese, the aviation industry, may in fact be IP, ripoff of aviation giants Airbus and Boeing. So let's get into it. But before we explain how the C919 could be off, we must first comprehend Chinese. China's aviation industry is evident. World's second largest aviation market, only the United States of America, so it's surprisingly large despite the sheer size of its aviation market. China just appears incapable of hacking it when it comes to aircraft manufacture. They do manufacture their own aircraft business known as Commercial Aircraft Corporation of China, or COMAC, which was formed in 2008. But COMAC haven't exactly been productive on the aircraft front. In fact, countries like Brazil, with Chinese aviation market Braer, produces more aircraft for civilian use each year than COMAC has in its entire history. And for a country like China, which is known as the manufacturing facility world, this is somewhat embarrassing. What makes it look even worse is the fact that the Chinese aviation market is expected to rise. In additional estimates, it is anticipated that China will have at least 1 billion annual air travelers. To put this into context, if every single United States citizen takes 3 flights a year, the amount of individuals flying would still not reach 1 billion. And when you include the neighboring Asian countries, then that number almost doubles. Now someone will take advantage of this growth, and as things currently stand, it wouldn't be China, who you may ask, well, it's kind of C919 obvious that Boeing and Airbus are the ones lacking their lips at this possible growth. But with the successful first commercial flight of COMAC made in middle-of-the-market aircraft, the C919, there just might be a glimmer of hope. But China has clearly been making every effort to reduce their reliance on foreign aircraft manufacturers for quite some time. And the main flight of the COMAC C919 signifies a step in the right direction for the CCP. The C919 comes with a passenger capacity of around 192 in a single-class configuration. In addition, they are powered by 2 CFM engines, can leap 1C engines, and fly over a variety of 3.11 nautical miles or 2,235 miles in the extended range version. Some of these statistics are shocking, but this is the first phase that Mac enters this market, and it is anticipated that they will advance from here. However, the C919 has been shrouded in controversy ever since its maiden commercial flight. At the beginning of the C919 took to the skies, it was celebrated across various sectors across China. Aerospace industry as a step in the right direction, break away from the West reliance. However, closer inspection suggests the C919 is primarily a Western airplane. Covered with Chinese paint, you see a large chunk of the aircraft's parts come from suppliers from all across the West. To put it bluntly, it essentially appears to the Airbus A320. And although the Chinese, according to state media, only about 40% of the plan's components were imported. Upon closer inspection, the percentage could actually be higher, much higher, because it looks like everything that keeps the C919 in the air was sourced externally. How did they do this well? Importing parts from foreign countries isn't a new thing, as even the likes of Boeing and Airbus share in this practice. However, it appears that Mac might have lifted some intellectual property from Boeing, and especially Airbus. Here's how, in case you didn't already know, both Airbus and Boeing have assembly plants. China-based. You might think this is a bad idea due to the tensions between China and the West, but it actually makes perfect business sense. You see, China is a large market, but it's also a very hostile one. And if you need to show that you're willing to play ball. That's what both Airbus and Boeing did by moving some of their assembling operations to China. This way, they still get to supervise the assembly of their aircrafts while still having access to the very profitable Chinese market. Nonetheless, China is still China, and they're well known for infringing on intellectual property rights, so having assembly operations on their soil would always pose a threat. So while there is a significant likelihood that Chinese aviation authorities have gone down this route for the COMAC does not have any tangible evidence. Therefore, all of these remain merely allegations. For now, despite the possibility of COMAC stealing ideas from them, both Boeing and Airbus actually have little cause for concern. You see, building an aircraft is so much harder than just designing one. This is the reason why Comac only just recently flew their first aircraft that could hold more than 100 people, despite spending close to $50 billion attempting to achieve it. The Chinese state is set in their pursuit of commercial aviation dominance, no matter how difficult that might seem. And now that they've got their first successful commercial flight out of the way, they can now look forward to ramping up production and seeing what the future holds. But did they really stamp chance? Was their stamp of approval genuine? As mentioned earlier, the Chinese. The aviation market anticipates a boom by the year 2035, with 1 billion possible annual air travelers. The industry is estimated to reach a potential value of $1 trillion likewise. The increased number of passengers that there would be a need for extra aircraft. It is anticipated that at least 8,500 new aircraft would be needed to meet up with the demand. At this stage, it's Airbus and Boeing who are rubbing their hands in anticipation of this boom. They already have their assembly plants well placed, as well as the resources and expertise required to increase production are these. Things Comac currently lack, but with the C919 now, airborne they can ramp up production to be competitive with aircraft, such as the Airbus A320 and Boeing 737 COMC, has also revealed plans of a collaboration with Russia to produce a wide-body jet called the CR929. However, they are bound to face a host of, first of all, the C919 simply cannot provide the REC-IRAD competition Comac needs, with 192 passengers and a range of barely 3,000 m. It can barely fly from one end of China to the other. Lateral other than being competitive, they would need aircrafts that could fly at a minimum 30% higher range than the C919 currently provides. Airbus and Boeing have a number of aircrafts that can comfortably fly these ranges, so carriers would want to stick with them. Then there's always the issue of trust when it comes to China, and the C919 doesn't exactly cover itself in glory. Even the Chinese authorities in aviation probably know that the C919 is more or less a ripoff, so you wouldn't expect a lot of foreign carriers to rush to get this aircraft. The tensions between China and the West certainly doesn't help in establishing trust, as it does not appear matter what they do. The West will always remain suspicious of their Chinese counterparts. Their tension is so high that plans for the CR929 also seem as good as died, because the only thing that was worse was than China in the eyes of the West. Russia is currently imagining a collaboration between both of them for something as delicate as an aircraft. The chances of the CR929 being implemented look very slim at this moment, unless maybe something changes the view of Russia and possibly China in the eyes of the West. But there's one silver lining for the C919 and Comac in general, though. And this is regional flights. You see, China is still home to over 1 billion people. And the aviation industry I&D is still expected to grow over the next couple of decades. This means that Comac can make full use of the fact that the C919 is taken to the skies with its range of close to 3,000 nautical miles. It should be able to cover the busiest routes across China and even reach Asia's neighboring nations. And if production can be properly ramped up, the C919 can be used within the next 10 years. Become profitable and get started. The Chinese aviation authorities, aka the CCP's dreams of taking over the world's aerospace. So what do you think of China's goal to become the dominant force in the aviation sector? And would you ever fly in a Chinese-produced aircraft? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.